Hello, hello, hello. Here we are coming to the end of summer and another episode of TOQ. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and make sure you look down below for merchandise and movie gifts. And now, also, let's go see Steve.
Hello, John. Welcome again to Title Queen at the movies.
Ooh, Johnny, it's August, and I wanted to do a Bette Davis movie, so I decided to do the very first Bette Davis movie I ever saw. Bette Davis and Bette Davis, with Glenn Ford, Charlie Ruggles, and Walter Brennan in Curtis Bernhardt's A Stolen Life from 1946. Betty had just come off doing a movie called The Corners Green in 1945, and it was a costume picture. She played an old Welsh school teacher, and it didn't make any money.
2 years is valuable currency.
She wanted to do a modern dress role again and something romantic. So this was an Elizabeth Bergner movie that had been made in Europe, and they brought it to her attention, and she thought this is a great opportunity. They wanted to cast Dennis Morgan in it. Robert Alda was originally signed to do it, and then she vetoed them when she took one look at Glenn Ford. Glenn Ford had just come out of the service, and he looked like $1 million. He was trying to reestablish his career again, and to star opposite Bette Davis, they borrowed him from Columbia, and this was a really good opportunity.
But don't blame him. I made a nuisance of myself.
I was very glad to do it for you.
You ain't got no right to be glad about nothing.
Basically, the plot is this. There are identical twins, Kate's and Pat's Bosworth. Now, Kate, who's the more subdued one, falls in love with Bill Emerson, who works at a lighthouse. And he's very kind and very strong, and I like him. Pat, who's a little bit more flirtatious, also likes him, takes him away from his sister, and marries him.
Too bad. Thank you. Any regrets?
Are you kidding?
Now, the next thing that happens is Kate is heartbroken. She's an artist. She takes up with Dane Clark, who was sort of at Warner Brothers, rival to John Garfield. When John Garfield would get a little naughty, they'd offer parts to Dane Clark to pull him back in line. Dane Clark was really handsome. And he was an artist, and he gives her a hard time and turns around sexually.
What do you mean?
But it's not there. She's still in love with Glenn Ford.
That's what I mean.
Her cousin is played by Charlie Ruggles, and Charlie Ruggles has a house on the Cape. And so she goes to visit Charlie Ruggles, and her sister is there. And the two of them go out sailing.
The freeze, Pat. You manage all right? Oh, sure. It's exciting.
And a storm comes up.
They're headed for the reefs. Leeward!
And Pat is washed overboard. And Kate tries to save her. And as the two of them get separated, the wedding ring comes off and Pat drowns. And when Kate wakes up, the wedding ring is on her finger, and everybody thinks she's Pat.
Mrs. Emerson.
What?
So she decides at that point that she's always loved him and no one can tell them apart. So she's going to play Pat. Well, he's been in Brazil. He comes back after the funeral, and she realizes right away that their marriage has been in terrible trouble.
Why the astonishment? Don't try to pretend that you've forgotten, Pat.
Oh, no.
And gradually she finds out that her sister has been cheating on him with everybody.
Don't think that people haven't heard about your rotten little scandals. Things get around, you know.
Everybody.
You're not a very discreet person.
He's very, very reticent about taking her back. She tries to beg him to take her back. And the big dilemma from then till the end of the movie is what's going to happen when he actually finds out who she is.
All right. You'll probably change your mind once you get home, but in the meantime, we'll let it go at that.
She had the hots for Glenn Ford. She thought he was great. She tried to seduce him a number of times, and he just wasn't having it. He was married to Eleanor Powell at the time, and he was one picture away from the movie that would make him a huge star, which was Gilda, which was the next movie he went into. That kind of brought a lot of tension to the set, but she got over it. And then years later, when her star was on the wane, he was a big star in the early 60s, and they did a Frank Capra movie called A Pocket Full of Miracles, which was a remake of Lady for a Day, and he brought Bette Davis in to play Apple Annie, and he made the mistake in a press conference of saying, well, Betty did me a favor after the war and cast me in A Stolen Life, so I thought she could use a favor now, so I cast her as Apple Annie.
Oh, Bill, how stupid of me. I completely forgot I have an engagement. I must run along.
This was the last Bette Davis movie under her Warner contract that made money. It was a big hit. And also, movie audiences were changing. The boys were coming home. Betty had the advantage during her heyday at Warner Brothers of, it was the war years, and the women were taking all the jobs and the women were home and they were choosing the movies, and they loved Bette Davis because she was strong and she was forthright and she was a great example of what women could do.
Now, you're pretty smart for a woman. Now, just a minute. Just what are you aiming for out here?
Look out, Eben. She's a Yankee.
When I was 13 years old, I was my best friend Sean Dady and I were going to go on a camping. It was in the summer, and we were going to go camping. This is why I chose this particular month to do this movie. And we were going on a camping trip, and we were all set to go. And it was about early evening. And Sean's mother, my surrogate mother, Nancy Dady, God bless her, she said, "Stevie, you need to come in here." And she was watching a movie, and I said, "What are you watching?" And she said, "Sit down here. This is Bette Davis. This is a movie called A Stolen Life, and I think you should watch this with me. She's my favorite actress, and you should watch it." I was riveted. It changed everything. It changed me so much because I became obsessed with Bette Davis. I suddenly wanted to see everything I could of hers, and it's from Bette Davis, it went on to other stars, and it was a very integral part in my becoming the movie lover that I eventually became.
Today, you think I'm well frosted.
I'll see.
Betty has always been one of my all-time favorite actresses, and this is my very favorite Bette Davis movie. Next to The Letter. I love The Letter when she plays, but this one she got to play twins. This is the first time she played twins. She played twins again in 1964 in Dead Ringer. And in that one, she kills herself. She murders herself. She plays rivaling sisters. But this one has that Warner Brothers romance. It's got top character people in it. Walter Brennan. Bette Davis went on and on about how respected Walter Brennan was in as character actors go. And he plays the cantankerous old lighthouse guy.
Could I ask you something?
I ain't talking to no one.
Would you sit for me?
Sit for you? What are you talking about?
And then the other one was Charlie Ruggles. Charlie Ruggles was so dear. Charlie Ruggles, you perplex me. He was the cutest. He was like the male Mary Boland, and he and Mary Boland were paired a lot together in a lot of comedies. Ruggles of Red Gap being the most famous one. But he had this little mustache. He sort of looks like the guy in the Monopoly game. You know, the little guy in the Monopoly game. That is Charlie Ruggles to a T. And he's the beloved guardian of the two twins.
The natives call this Jersey lightning. The thunder comes later.
He's the first one who realizes that she's posing as her sister.
Freddie, if I were to tell you that...
Yeah, wait a minute. I believe I know what you want to tell me, Kate.
And the Steiner score, the Max Steiner score. Poor Max Steiner. You know, Max Steiner was the resident composer at Warner Brothers, and he was having to compose 3 or 4 or 5 movies at the same time. So sometimes he would sort of take a basic theme from one movie and juxtapose a couple of notes here or there, and then it would be in the next movie. The theme from Mildred Pierce, which he had done 2 years earlier, was da 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 da. Well, for Stolen Life, he changed it just a couple of things, and it was da 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 da. You know, he would just like jumble them around like this and throw in old themes. But this is a romantic score. It's just got the Warner Brothers stamp of romance on it. The supporting players are great. Clara Blandick is in, who played Auntie M in The Wizard of Oz. She has a great scene with Walter Brennan. Walter Brennan comes in to buy a ship's model, and he says,
I'll give you $50 cash.
You're only wasting your time. The price is $150.
75 then. It's highway robbery, but...
$150.
"You're holding me up." They have this whole back and forth, and it's so great. It's just great character stuff that they're given to do. This movie is Warner Brothers at its best, and it's romantic, and it's Bette Davis at her best. 2 Bettys for the price of 1, and that's what they advertised it as. The good one, the bad one, it's gonna be a good show. Bette Davis and Bette Davis. With Glenn Ford, Walter Brennan, Charlie Ruggles, and Clara Blandick. And Curtis Bernhardt's wonderful A Stolen Life.
Let's all go to the lobby.
The moral of the story is Bette Davis made you gay.
I was 8 before I was 7. Bette Davis did not make me gay.
The popcorn can't be beat.